What's up, everybody? How you doing? It's your pal, Steve Witchell, founder of Cover Band Central. It is Tuesday, April 16th, 2024, broadcasting live here at 2:30 p.m. Central Time, where I am in New Orleans. I'm here today for a special interview with Vaughan Fleischfresser, I gotta say that right, um, from Scotland, who is a music educator. And I stumbled on him as on social media as he shares these educational posts all the time about music education, the importance of it, um, and he seemed really passionate about this. And I would see this on my feed all the time, and it was so much resonated with my vision for music education that I would share it on the Cover Band Central page. And then, I just over and over would see this, and he posts every day on his Facebook page, um, which has 25,000 followers, by the way. And he's also on Twitter and Instagram, X, not Twitter. You know what I mean. But all very insightful, very passionate, very inspiring posts. And I was like, I got to talk to this guy. I gotta find out what he's all about. So I got in touch with him, and um, he is here today with us. Let's bring him in. There he is. Vaughn, what's up? Welcome.
Hi, Steve. Thanks very much for having me. And
Yes,
thanks for your
thanks for
kind words. Yeah.
yeah, thanks for being here, taking your time out to do this today. Um, I want to get into what you're doing nowadays, but I want to start about your background, how you got started in all of this. You're from Australia originally, and now you live in Scotland, and you're a music educator there. Well, tell me what it is you're currently doing now, so everybody gets up
Well,
to speed.
yeah, sure. So my day job at the moment is working in, I guess, what you guys call elementary music. So I teach elementary music. I teach kids from the age of 3 to the age of 11,
Okay.
which is over here we call classroom music. And the music education system here in Scotland and Australia is a bit different to the States. When you guys get to middle school, I think you choose band, choir, or orchestra, but we continue with a form of, I guess, what you guys call general music the whole way through. So I teach elementary music. I work with a lot of community groups. Concert band and wind band is my main passion. So I conduct a lot of bands in my local area. I work with lots of bands throughout Scotland, and I'm doing lots of talking at the moment. Yesterday, I was down in England doing a talk. On Friday morning, I'm speaking to a conference in Australia on the computer. Here I am talking to yourself. So it's a really nice mix. Yeah, but at the moment, you'll find me jumping around the classroom with 3 to 10 year olds every day, having a great time.
Wow, that's great. I mean, that's cool. I didn't know you were speaking as much, and you're that busy. And that makes me really appreciate this that much more, that you took the time out to talk to me and the Cover Band Central audience. By the way, we are live, and if anybody wants to say hello or ask a question here, please feel free to, and tell us where you're from too. We are worldwide here, Cover Band Central too, so we're all over the place. The audiences, and we get a lot in the UK and a lot in Australia too. A lot of people that follow CBC. So you're a saxophone player originally, correct?
Yes, that's
And
correct.
you started young, right? You were how old were you when you started playing?
Yeah, well, I always get in trouble when my mum sees these interviews and I say I was 7. I can't remember whether it was 6 or 7, but we started on the tenor saxophone. My brother and I, we started at the same time. So obviously it's a bit bigger than the alto, but the teacher in my small country town that I grew up in, he said, if you learn the tenor sax, you'll get a lot more gigs sooner because everyone learns the alto. So yeah, we started on the tenor sax at the age of well, I say 7, and yeah, so I grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere, so I got to play outside, play inside. The dog would always sing along, but yeah, that's where I started.
So a lot of kids, music, like learning an instrument, gets kind of forced on them by parents, and it's a tedious thing that they have to do. Piano lessons, like, I don't want to go do piano lessons stuff. What was it like for you as a kid? Were you eager? Was that exciting to you, to start playing at that young an age, 6 or 7?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was. The funny story is my brother and I were doing tap dancing at that time, and we got to
Okay.
the age where we weren't really keen on that. And mum and dad said, "Well, if you're not going to dance, why don't you learn an instrument?" and we just jumped at it. I mean, at that age, the age of 6 or 7, as I was just saying yesterday when I was talking, music teachers who get to introduce young people to an instrument, I think it's the closest you get to being Santa. I will never forget that saxophone case opening. You just see it, you feel it, you make that sound. It's magic. Now, just like everyone else, I got to 12, 13-year old, and I didn't want to keep going. I hated practicing. My mum forced
Right.
me, and I was terrible to her for a couple of years, but my gosh, I can't thank her enough, because I came out the other side, and well, here I am right now. But no, when I first started, it was magic. It was great.
Yeah, I imagine. I mean, saxophone is probably not. I've never tried even to play saxophone, but I imagine it's somewhat difficult to get good at it. It probably takes a little while. And listening to bad saxophone is probably, uh, you know, uh, you know, tough. For some people anyway,
hmm
to have to like endure, hearing bad notes and squeaks and all that. But your mom was super supportive. Yeah, both your parents, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
my mum was, because my dad was a full-time farmer, so he was away at the crack of dawn and not back
Okay.
till nighttime. So mum was the one who did a lot of the day-to-day stuff, but she would drive us to lessons, because in the part of Australia I grew up in, young people can learn an instrument for free. In high school, in primary school, elementary school, it depends on if there's a teacher in the area. And because I was in quite a remote area, um, you couldn't start learning an instrument till you got to high school. So my parents, invested in me to have lessons up until I got to high school, when they became free. So my mum would drive me half an hour to the next closest town twice a week to have lessons, and would take me to festivals and competitions. And we weren't allowed to watch TV until we'd done our 30 minutes practice a day. She was yeah, she was always there, making sure that we were practicing as much as we could.
That's great. When I started playing, which was later, I'm bass guitar is my primary instrument, and I started when I was 15, and I was really eager to do it because a couple of my friends were playing instruments too. I had a friend who played drums. I had a friend who played guitar, and I wanted to jam with them. That was my motivation right there in the beginning. And I had to. My mom said, I said, "Mom, I want a bass," and she said, "Well, you gotta get at least B's in your next marking period in school and get a job, and I'll pay for half." That was the agreement. And I was like, okay. So I did it. I got good grades and I got a job at a pizza place washing dishes, and then got my first bass. And I took private lessons to start, and took music theory in high school. I was in high school at the time. I was a junior, and started jamming with my friends. And for me, and I talk about this all the time, is was an incredible music education in the beginning because I got it from those three sides. I learned theory, I learned my instrument, and I learned how to work with other people all at the same time at, not as young as you, but still relatively young, 15 years old. And so when you first started, were you learning theory too, or were you just learning your instrument, how to work the whole thing?
Yeah, no, I was learning both. So my saxophone teacher also taught me theory, because over here, and again Australia and the UK, there's this, it's like an external examination board, which is completely separate to schools, where you can do graded exams from grade 1 up to grade 8. And so there's exams you can do on each instrument, but there's also exams that correlate with each level in the theory. So I was having music lessons and theory lessons, and working through the exam structure as I went. So no, it was both at the same time. And then as soon as I could play 5 or 6 notes, I was in a local community band, and that's when I looked at the conductor and went, "Yeah, I quite like that. What that guy's doing. I think I'll do that." And the
Right.
rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah, it's so very similar education. What was your music influence at the time? I mean, Australia, I don't know what were you listening to? What was inspiring you as a kid?
Well, that's the interesting thing. The only music I really listened to was whatever music came on occasionally on the talkback radio stations that my parents would listen to, or music that was on the TV. So I didn't really have at that time, I couldn't tell you what I was listening to, but when I started to learn the saxophone, my teacher recommended to my parents that, we should listen to other saxophonists. So my mum, the only saxophonist she could find out about was Kenny G. So believe it or not, I had quite a few Kenny G albums to start with. But then
Sure.
I got a fantastic teacher when I was in early high school who was really into jazz, and he introduced me to the greats, Charlie Parker, Cannonball Adderley. I really loved saxophonists like that. So the more I started to get into ensembles, and the more I was came across other music teachers who shared their passion for various styles with me, I just picked it all up and lapped it up along the way, and my tastes grew from there.
Okay. So, did your taste grow out into different genres of music, different styles? Did you ever get into like rock and all that kind of stuff? Or
Yeah, I mean, and when I got into high school, growing up in Australia, Nirvana were big at the time, and then when I got to
okay,
later high school, Metallica. My friends at later high school were just obsessed with Metallica, so I was listening to them a lot. Pearl Jam, they were also really big over here. But yeah, I mean, I listened to anything. The more I got closer to leaving school, and the more I decided that I wanted to do a degree in music and I wanted to be a music teacher, I really tried to lap up as much as I could. When I got to later high school, and I'd done as many of the exams as I could on the saxophone, the teachers in the school, as is often the case, needed an oboe player and a bassoon player. So I picked them up along the way. And so as a result of that, I got exposed to orchestral music. I was playing in the school jazz band. So I was being introduced to jazz and funk. Funk was something that I really, really enjoyed. When I got into after university, I moved over to Scotland. I joined a New Orleans street style funk band where we had the sousaphone, a couple of guys on drums, trombone, trumpet, alto, tenor sax. So yeah, I really enjoy all styles of music, and it's been the great thing about picking it up along the way with different teachers and traveling to different parts of the world and just experiencing it everywhere I go.
right on. So I read a little bit of an interview that you did recently. So you went to the UK on holiday, I guess it was, and then
Yeah, working
uh,
holiday. So, like
yeah,
most Aussies do, you go over for 9 months work and travel, and then go home. But I ended up staying.
okay, and then you ended up getting a job as a result, and that's where Edinburgh Academy. Is that where you're still?
Edinburgh Academy. That's where I'm working just now. Yeah,
Okay,
I've worked in other schools as well, but that's my current one. And I actually spent 3 summers in Chicago. I did a master's degree over there at Vandercook College of Music, so I got to live on campus for 7 weeks each summer for 3 summers. So that was just magic. I just absolutely loved Chicago, and the music teachers from all over the Midwest just coming together to get a master's degree in either wind band or choir or orchestral education. It was magic. I loved Chicago.
yeah, I've been there a couple times too, and I do love Chicago. I played at the Hard Rock there once,
Mhm.
and a couple other little small dingy clubs in Chicago. Um, so you're teaching kids, and I love it that you're teaching kids so young. When I was in elementary school, we had we learned the flutophone, which is a recorder basically.
Right.
They called it flutophone back then, and second grade. So I was 6 or 7 years old about that time, but that was really it. So is it now? Is it mandatory in schools there, or is it is it an elective, or how does that work?
Yeah,
Is
no,
it
it's something that every young person is, well, by law, it's written in that you should be able to have access to music education until you get to, well, it's the point where you start to select your own subject. So I guess the end of middle school in American terminology. So yeah, everyone needs to have music lessons, what we call classroom music.
Mhm.
And so it depends on what part of the country you're in. That could be a half an hour a week, it could be an hour a week. Yeah, it all depends, but yeah, every child should have access to some form of music education until they get to the end of middle school.
Right? Is it like that in Australia as well?
Yeah, yep, the same. The systems are quite similar in the UK and Australia.
Okay, because I don't. I mean, maybe you could tell me, but I don't know that it is like that in the United States. I don't have kids, so I don't know what the experience is like for kids.
Sure. Well, my understanding is that you have elementary music up until then middle school. I think you choose either band, choir, or orchestra. That's my understanding.
Mhm.
But I don't know whether it's compulsory in elementary schools. I'd like to think so, but that's actually something I don't know the answer to.
Yeah, I don't know either, but I get see, I get the impression from your posts, and I want to read one of them here that and again, guys, there's a link in the description of this interview of this video here, guys, where you can follow Vaughn on Facebook and on Instagram. I think I put his link there. But I'll read one from yesterday, and it says, many people get through life thanks to music. Many people get through school thanks to music. Many people form friendships thanks to music. Many people come to know just how awesome they are thanks to music. Many people have their lives enhanced thanks to music. Thanks, music. And you have these posts like this all the time. And I got the impression first when I first saw these you posting these things that you were really trying to be an advocate for uh, more music education in schools. Is that your motivation, or is it something else?
Well, I have many motivations. I think I like to try and bring my experiences just out into the world to let people know that, you know, some people have positive music education experiences. I'd like to think more people have positive ones than negative, but the more people I speak to, I'm inspired more to do what I do because you hear of some horror stories of what people have had. But really, when I first started out on Twitter, it was first of all just to let people know that, I was a real person with real thoughts. I'd moved from Australia to Scotland. I'd moved to America, back to Scotland. I'd gone back to Australia for a couple of years. I'd come back to Scotland. My name is quite unusual, and I was struggling to get a teaching gig the second time I came back to Scotland when I first arrived. So I just wanted to let people know I was a real person and just share my thoughts. But at that time, as is quite a problem in Australia and the UK, and I know it's happening in parts of Canada at the moment, just budget cuts and the constant questioning of the relevance and importance of not just music but the arts. So, about 10 years ago, when I came back to Scotland for the second time, there were some local areas that were starting to either charge, unrealistic amounts of money for students to learn instruments, or they were just getting rid of music teachers altogether. So, when people were putting up posts about, campaigning to try and overturn such decisions, that's when my fire was fueled even more, and I started to just be a bit more vocal and share a lot more of my thoughts. And then from that, I got asked to speak at a few events where local instrument teachers were teaching, and people came up and said how much my words had inspired them, how much it had reminded them of why they got into music teaching in the first place. And it just reminded them of the importance of what they do and why they do it, and the fact that they wanted to keep going after they had a moment away from the challenges to refocus on it and get back to it. So, yeah, that's where it's kind of taken me now. I find myself more inspiring people who teach music and are struggling, but also, I mean, I started out on Twitter, and that was where I really first started to, get known by people. But I mean, in December, I think I had 2,000 followers on Facebook, and now, as you said, I think I'm about to hit 26,000. It's been quite um, astonishing what's happened in that area. But I've now got people from Africa, from America, from Australia, from Asia, lots of people just sharing their experiences and how learning an instrument, and for me, being in an ensemble. That's why a lot of my posts are about being in a band or a choir or an orchestra, and the impact that that has on people, that connection, that form of expression. And so many people have said, if it wasn't for band or for choir or for orchestra, I wouldn't have got through school. And a lot of people say if it wasn't for access to these ensembles and the joy and expressive quality of music, they wouldn't even be alive today. It's that profound, some of the things that people share. So yeah, it's really taken off, and the place that I have, the importance that I have, and the power that my words currently have is not lost on me. It's quite humbling, and I take it really quite seriously because it can make a big difference.
I can tell you do. I mean, and you know, you're so creative and but so passionate with everything that you say. You know, the way you pick your words, and you know, every time I read one of your posts, I'm like, yes, 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 yes. Like it's they're just so good and so intelligent. And um, I just think so. When I first started Cover Band Central, I had. Particular goals. And this was 10 years ago now, actually almost 11 years ago that I started. And I wanted for the page, I wanted to have posts be entertaining, inspirational, or educational. And it had to be one of those three things that I posted. And as you said, you've seen the page and you see it's kind of an eclectic mix. I want to keep people laughing. I don't want it to be so serious. You know, I don't want, you know, music is fun. You know, we should be
Mhm.
all happy and having fun and laughing at ourselves too. You know, I've been playing bass now for 40 years, and I still feel like, you know, there's so much for me to learn still. You know, I'm not that good. You know, I mean, but I am, you know, in certain people's
Yeah,
eyes, I'm
yeah.
very good, you know, but to me, I'm like, you know, I see other people play. I'm like, holy cow, that's, you know, that's what I still have so much to learn.
Mhm,
Um, but you know, I love to inspire people too. I love to, you know, I think music is so incredibly important in life. You know, it's
mhm.
just and people don't realize how much they're surrounded by music on a daily basis. You know, you turn on the TV, you hear jingles, you hear somebody singing. You know, the radio, obviously. You know, everywhere you go in a store,
Mhm.
you hear music. You know, and you're in a car. Um, and to me, like music education doesn't ever end, you know, and
Correct.
you know, you're teaching kids, but you know, I wanted to remind adults that you could still learn stuff. You know, and I want to keep doing that. And it seems like you do too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's never too late, and that's one of the things I find really inspiring about my own journey as a teacher is I've been able to teach people from the age of 3 up to, nearly 90. My first 10 years as a teacher was in high schools. I had a couple of years working at the Edinburgh University, training people to become music teachers. I've always, since I became a conductor, I've had a community group of some form, whether it's a choir or a concert band, and that's what I love about community bands. The band I conduct here in my local town, the youngest person is 14, and just recently the oldest one was 88. He's just retired. My lead trumpeter, he said, "I think it might be time to give it up, Vaughan." I was like, "That's fine, mate. Off you go." But that's the magic of it, and it's not just in a community band. It's in a school band. Schools are constantly wanting to find ways to get young people to connect across the different year levels, the different ages. Whereas over here, the school band has kids from the age of 12 up to 17, and then you'll
Right.
go and you'll conduct your local community band, and there's a high schooler next to a nurse, who's next to a business professional, who's next to someone who works in a factory, who's next to a teacher from their school. And again, where else does that happen in society in such a meaningful, authentic, and magical way? It's just brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, it is such a community-based type of thing, and it really keeps people from doing things that they shouldn't be doing. You know,
Yeah. Mhm.
it's a positive influence all the way around. And you know, the way it works your brain, the way it's you interact with other people, and that's what I really enjoyed from my education in the beginning was that I learned how to work with other people. I learned how to compromise. I learned how to learn from other
Mhm.
people too.
Yeah.
I just had a conversation the other day with a friend of mine and I said, I always like to play with people that are better than me
Mhm.
because I like to be pushed. I like to learn. I like that challenge. And I suppose other people do too. Um, and you know, you talk about a lot about school, how it inspires kids in school, you know, kids might not want to go to school and learn math and learn, you know, things that maybe aren't going to be relevant for them in later in life, but they look forward to that half hour of, you know, their music class or whatever. And I mean, do you find that you must? I mean, you find that the kids are more excited, you know, to come to class, you know, your class rather than you know, whatever else.
Uh-huh. Well, again, not education, sadly, is trying to fit multi-dimensional shapes through a square hole, and then the world is full of so many different people, and so many young people wander through school wondering where they fit. And it's music where they fit. And you only have to watch when there's a school musical, and other teachers will go, "Oh, I had no idea that that kid could do that." It's like, well, the arts is where they get to shine. I know so many people. I've had young people who I've taught, and again, yesterday I was chatting with music teachers at the conference I was talking at, and they were saying the same thing happened to them. The person who is really shy and doesn't want to speak in front of people, but will get up and sing their heart out on stage, or the person who struggles in the playground to form friendships, but when they're in choir with all their choir buddies, they just feel really accepted, or the kid who doesn't do well at tests or doesn't do well at exams, but when they get up with their instrument and perform, they just shine. And it's not all about academics, it's about the whole child, it's about the whole experience, and everything that you learn through music, and also being in an ensemble. It doesn't matter where you end up in life. It helps you get there, and then it helps you stay there. At the birth of my second child, I share this story a lot. It was a planned C-section, so I was sat in the corner, just sitting there like a spare thumb. And then at some point someone said, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" And I said, "I'm a music teacher." And then the next 5 minutes there was this most wonderful conversation where the anaesthetist, the surgeon, the consultant, the nurses, they all just shared how they had learned an instrument at school, or they'd sung in a choir, and how they still did that in their current life, because it just provided balance and that connection. And so it never goes away. When you give someone that instrument, as I say, another voice, they can take that with them wherever they go. When I got to Scotland, I knew only the my girlfriend at the time, who I'd moved here with. I didn't know another soul, but I took my saxophone to a jazz bar, to a jam night, and I'm still in contact with some of the people I met that first night. I went to a community wind band rehearsal a few nights later, and some of the people I met there are my best friends over here. So I'd gone 14,000 miles away from home, but I had my saxophone. I went along, joined a group. Hey presto, music family.
Yeah, wow. That's so cool. I mean, I find that most of my friends are because I made them because I play music. Yeah, it's so great that it starts that young for you, that you're getting to experience that, and having that influence on kids, shaping them.
Mhm.
Do you see it happening where, they're studying music and that their other academics are improving as a result? Can you actually see that and show it?
Well, I don't know whether, I mean, and there's studies that go into that, but what I see is, I see the change it makes in them as a person, and the confidence that it instills in them. And I'm firmly of the belief that that has to have a positive impact in other areas of their life, whether it be academic or social, or just in general development. And I think it benefits everyone in some way, and whatever way it does help, um, that's a great thing. But for me, it drove me to try harder in other subjects, because I had my band director, who was an ex-army officer. I had him always on my shoulder saying, "That's not good enough, Fleischfresser. That's not good enough, Fleischfresser. You can do better." So in other areas of my learning, I just wanted to do better, because I had that inspiring voice in my head saying, "You could do better." And obviously, I wanted to study music at university, so I had to get particular grades in maths and English, and they were my two weaker areas. But if my
Right.
English teacher knew I was somewhat known now for writing things, she'd probably have a heart attack. If only my English assignments were 240 characters or less, I would have done a lot better. But
Right.
yeah, for me, I see it in many different areas with young people. But for me, it's just the confidence it instills through them realizing that, A, they're good at something, B, it gives them a chance to connect with others and make friendships and be accepted in a way that they mightn't have been without that. For many of them, it becomes the thing that they're good at. It gives them this purpose, because with young people, I mean, at the age of 12 or 13, they're told, like, to choose what they want to do with the rest of their life. I mean, how much of a disservice are we giving young people by by making them do that. But I think music gives them this path to go on while they're trying to work out what they want to do with their lives. It gives them this focus, and then they join these groups, and it just becomes a place where they feel like they belong because they're accepted, because they're good at it, because it's given them this purpose. It's for me, it's that whole package, that environment that we create, and then that lets them to just flourish in whatever avenue they choose, whether that be music or something else.
I love that you mentioned about the confidence, how it builds confidence, because that is something that I experienced myself and I've seen in other people. And yeah, it's you might have a kid who's like, I don't feel like I'm good at anything. Like might be struggling with math, might be struggling with just reading and then you see people too. You see the stories of people who stutter and then but then they sing and then there's no stutter, it's gone. Or
Yep.
there's a uh, I forget his Cody. Oh gosh, what's his last name? He was on America's Got Talent. He was a piano player, singer, and ended up winning it a few years ago.
Oh wow.
And blind and has some other learning disabilities, but just an amazing piano player, amazing singer. When you see him singing or you hear him singing, you wouldn't know anything. You wouldn't know anything
Yep.
about this guy that he's struggling with anything, but just brilliant. And music, like you said, magic a bunch of times, and I really feel like magic. Music is magic. It creates this thing that is almost unexplainable. Like how do how can people overcome things just simply by playing a tune? But it does. It works. It happens in life, and it's. I mean, I really applaud you for what you're doing, and again, I had a conversation recently too about education in America and my personal like, and I studied algebra in high school and trigonometry and geometry, and I don't use any of that now.
Mm.
you know, it doesn't. I don't know how it helped me other than logical thinking. Using my brain for that. But I really wish that it was mandatory up through the end of high school where you studied some music, or
Mhm.
maybe not mandatory because I guess you can't force people to play music, but um,
Well, I think if it's approached in the right way from a very early age, and a love of music is instilled in people, I think that if that's, I think a lot of what we can do better in education is have music happening a lot earlier, just as a natural part of things rather than something that you choose or something that you do. It's just a part of who we are and what we do. I think that's the real key, because I really do believe that everyone is a musician, and anyone who says that they aren't, they've probably had a negative experience growing up, or someone has said something, or it's as I say to the kids I teach, with singing, a lot of them, if they're not absolutely perfect, they stop, and I say, well, if you don't kick the ball as good as Ronaldo, but you didn't stop kicking a ball because you weren't the world's best. So just because you're not the world's best singer doesn't mean you should stop singing. It's just this thing that I think society projects on people about perfection when it comes to many aspects of music that put people off. But I think everyone has music in them, and we've just got to find the right way to bring it out.
I love that. Yeah, nobody is the best. Nobody is
Mhm.
perfect. Nobody is.
Yep.
And I learned that a long time ago, and I remind other people of that too. Like, you're never going to be the best at what you're doing, so don't worry about it. Just be the
Mhm.
best that you can be.
Yep.
So you said that we need to do better. How can we do better? What can we do better? What
Well,
can we
I
do?
mean, that's the million-pound question. It's trying to convince those in power to implement the changes. I mean, I think people who, well, there's the hierarchy of subjects. As Sir Ken Robinson, who was a famous English academic, and I think he has one of the most watched TED talks of all time. It's called "Why Schools Kill Creativity," and he talks about how the education system that we have at the moment was essentially designed to prepare people for jobs from the industrial age,
Yep.
and that's no longer relevant. And then my other favorite quote of his is, the problem with education is the older people get, we progressively educate them from the waist up, then we focus on their head, and then we focus on one side. And that again doesn't serve the purpose of the world today. So for me, I think we need to be empowering future teachers to feel enabled to, particularly those who work in elementary schools, to just engage in music making and make it more natural. And then for people just to, if that happens, and to make music more natural and more embedded in everything we do in education, then when it gets to high school, I think it would be seen better. But it's just breaking down those barriers. The number of people who are told, "Oh, you need to give up music to focus on your studies." But as I constantly say, I can't think of anywhere I've worked where the school leaders or the valedictorian hasn't been a musician. Why is that? That's not a coincidence. Why are we telling people to stop doing something that those who achieve these things, that certain ways of measuring outcomes, these people have music and they achieve these things that we're wanting people to achieve? So it's a difficult question, and I don't think anyone has the answer. But it's I also think if we can improve the educational experience that we're giving young people now when it comes to music, when they have their own kids, I think they will value it more. I mean, I speak to so many people my age who say, "Oh, my school music was terrible. This is all we did." And I think, "Oh my gosh, no wonder you don't think it's of any benefit to your child if you think that's what the experience is." So I think it's a long game, but I think it's about getting things started earlier. I often say, there's no point building a house from the roof down. You've got to work on the foundations. And the problem with the education system is all of the emphasis and the value is placed on the roof. And they wonder why the roof isn't always fit for purpose. It's, well, you haven't worried about the rest of the house as much as you should. So
Right.
for me, that's what I think we need to be doing. We need to try and embed it sooner, make teachers feel comfortable enough to have a go at it, and then just watch it flourish from there. But again, if I had the answer, I would probably not be talking to you. I'd be off somewhere else doing something. But
Maybe you do
that's
have the answer, Vaughn, because maybe
well,
you're leading the charge here. Because I mean, you just said you went from 2,000 in December to 25,000 4 months later of followers. So you're really gaining some traction here, and anything that I can do here to help and create this awareness, I certainly want to do. And I love that you said everybody's a musician. That there's music in
mhm,
everybody. And I used to say to people that that statement is better than what I would say, which was that everybody either is a musician or wants to be a musician.
mhm,
I would always say that. I mean, you see these singing shows like the American Idols and the America's Got Talent and The Voice and all that. How many people want to sing and want to
mhm.
be, doing this for a living? Like, how is it not obvious in the education system that you know music is incredibly important and incredibly desirable for people to do that? When I was in school, I remember like career day, and people would pick, "Oh, I'm going to go be a lawyer and I'm going to go be an architect or whatever." And I remember like looking, where's the music option? Where is
Mm,
that? And it wasn't there. And I would tell people, back then when I was 16, 17 years old, "What do you want to do?" They'd say, and I'd say, "I want to be a musician." You can't do that. You got to get a real job.
mhm.
That's what I was told. And we got to stop doing that. We got to stop
Yep.
doing that to kids. And I was so adamant about it and so passionate about it that I never gave up. And I did have to get real jobs. I got jobs that, had, paid the bills and did what I had to do. But for the most part, I was miserable. And I still played in bands. I still played on the weekends or whatever. My friends, I did a couple records. Um, I never gave up on it. And it wasn't
Yeah.
until I was, 42, I'm 56 now. It wasn't until I was 42 where I finally figured it out. It's like, I'm going to move to New Orleans. I'm going to go play music there because that's where you can get a job playing music.
Mhm.
So yeah, people need to know that it's possible, and it doesn't have to be like I do or like you do. There's so many ways to do it. But
Absolutely.
I'm so happy that I discovered you and that more people are discovering you now. So
It's really kind. Thank you.
what keeps you inspired? Because you seem to be coming up with new ones all day, every day. You post several times a day.
Mhm.
What keeps you? Where do the ideas come from? Do you just sit with pen and paper and it just flows, or how does it work?
Yeah, I mean, something usually comes to me when I'm on the couch at night reflecting on the day. I mean, a lot of the things that I tweet, I mean, in the last couple of months, I haven't actually really written much new. I've just gone back through the content that I've created over the last 10 years because I thought to myself, well, there's a significantly large amount of people now who have never seen many of my thoughts in the past. So, I've just been going back and reflecting on what I've written and, you know, finding ones that I thought, oh, well, yeah, I remember that. And I remember the thing that inspired that. So, yeah, it's often an interaction with a student or a discussion with a parent or, going to a performance or conducting a group. There's always something that inspires the thought, which, 9 times out of 10 goes back to an experience that I had as a child or something that I've seen in the classroom. So, yeah, they always come from something in the field, so to speak. But yeah, I just love what I do. I mean, you're probably the same. We get paid to you get paid to play the guitar. I get paid to jump around the room and sing and teach instruments and conduct. It's and having grown up on a farm, I was meant to be a fifth generation farmer, and I saw what my parents did to, make a living. And I haven't worked a day in my life. It's a real joy, but I just constantly hold on to what music did for me and knowing that it could do that for even if it's just one person but more people. And the more teachers I talked to, they got into teaching for the same reason. And when you're teaching day in and day out, it can get tough, the challenges, the questions about our relevance and our importance. But when you constantly remind people of that moment or that spark or that school or that ensemble that got people into teaching, I just want to keep fueling people's fire so they can keep giving that experience to as many young people as possible. But yeah, it's usually an experience during the day or something that's reminded me of something in the past.
I wish you were my teacher when I was in school.
Oh,
My
that's very kind.
my teacher was his name was George Westner. He played at the time. This is my music theory teacher in high school, and he
Mhm.
played organ and piano at Radio City Music Hall. That
Wow.
was his other job, and he just would come to the school and teach theory. And I took theory 2 years in a row, and it was basically the same. It was music theory and then music theory two, but not enough people signed up for music theory two, so they just combined the two classes, and it was basically
Mhm.
music theory one all over again, which was
Right.
great because you don't really absorb it all. And theory can be very a little confusing as a kid, especially. Um, so it was good to get the refresher. And then I went to college
Mhm.
and took it again, took music
Yeah.
theory again. So I learned a lot of theory. There's a lot of
Yeah.
people that play music that never even learn any theory, and I always say that you should learn at least some. You know,
Yeah, I think a blended approach is really good. I mean, I grew up with looking at reading and writing music straight away, and so I was kind of a slave to that, so to speak. And then when I joined a couple of groups, bands, when I moved over here to Scotland, they were like, "No, we don't have any music. You got to memorize this 45-minute set by next week." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've never done this before," and so it was really tough. But what an experience it was! But then I can be called up by someone and say, "Oh, our saxophonist is sick. Can you come and play this in 45 minutes?" And because I can read music, up you go and you do it. So, yeah, I think both avenues have real benefit, and I think it's whatever avenue gets you into it and keeps you going. I think is really good. But I'm a the longer I teach music and the longer I make music, I'm a strong believer in having a go at both, being able to read a bit of music, but also being able to play by ear and um, let the music just sit to the side for a bit and just play.
yeah. And the reason I say that I wish you were my teacher because George Westner was he seemed like he was kind of miserable at
Right.
teaching kids. It seemed very tedious to him, and if you didn't get it right away, he almost got pissed off at you, like,
Yeah.
and that was tough to take, as in high school, like, I'm trying here. I don't exactly
Hmm.
know what's going on, because he was really good. He
Yeah.
would go on the piano and he would just like do all this stuff and like, wow. And then yeah, but anyway,
Well,
it does help when your teacher is spirited and positive and motivating, and.
Well, that's what
gives
we
you
are. We're the lighters of the flame. We're the passers of the joy. If there's no joy in it, why are you doing it? But I mean, it's a tough gig. Teaching is a tough gig, but um, you've got to remember why you got into it in the first place, and that's what I think of every day when I go up to school and off we go.
passers of the joy. I love that. Have you thought about writing a book?
I've been asked a couple of times well, more than a couple of times, but my honest answer is I don't know how to go about it, and I don't know whether I have the time. But yeah, it's something that people have suggested I do quite often. People have said I should put together a book of my quotes and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's something I would think about if someone came along and offered to help. But life's pretty pretty full as it is.
Sure. I would love to see you write a book, though. Call it Passers of the Joy. Talk about
There we go. You heard it here first. That's the name of the book.
talk about how important it is to be a music educator, and how much you're making a difference in the world for future generations. It's important for us to pass this torch on to the kids, and so that they learn the importance of music, and they pass it on, and so on and so on. And that's a big part of my mission too, with Cover Band Central, is to the joy of music, the love for it, um,
Mhm.
to pass that on. And I see that a lot of people in my generation, or who have kids, they're getting a guitar for their kids or whatever, and I'm seeing a lot of that happen. So that's inspiring to me. Um,
Absolutely.
all right, Vaughn. Well, thank you for taking your time out tonight, all the way in Scotland. This is amazing. I love technology. You're halfway across the world, and I get to
Isn't
talk
it
to you
great?
here in real
Yeah, it's
time.
magic.
Um, you know, thank you for letting me share your stuff, and I'm going to continue to do it, and link to your page and all your socials. And yeah, just keep doing what you're doing, man. I
Yeah, I
love it.
really appreciate your time, Steve, and your kind words. It means a lot, and it's, yeah, as you said, technology is incredible. I'm connecting with people from all over the world and sharing that joy of music. What's not to love?
Yeah, what's not to love? This is available for replay as soon as we're done, so you can find it on YouTube and on Facebook, on the Cover Band Central page, in the Cover Band Central group. And if you want to share it, Vaughn, please feel free to share it.
Will do.
All right, sir. Thank you. Have a great night, and hopefully I'll talk to you soon again.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Steve.
All right. Get out of here. There we go.